Good evening, Kuya sa September naman po dahil makakita o makadungog na sabtag na ay makanta. Whenever I see girls and boys selling lanterns on the street. No, I'm not Jose Maritzana. But when I was younger, some of my friends told me that I look a little like him. Do you agree? Thanks for the compliments. Pawala na ito sa purugan. Once again, Kuya Sanatis, good evening. I am being Sarigumba, married to Ani, for 39 years now, and we are blessed with 3 grown-up sons, 2 of whom are still single, and our eldest is married. I am a retired bank officer and have been in the BCBP Mandawi chapter for 39 years now. Presently, I am with the Talamban chapter. My talk tonight is entitled Loving God and Neighbor. I would like to give you the highlights of my talk. First, loving God as an ideal. Second, Jesus Christ as our model in loving God and loving our neighbor. Third, the challenge. What is your response? On loving God, some of us try to express our love for God in varied ways. One, there are those who love to go to church and hear Mass every day. Second, there are others who like to read the Bible and bring the Bible wherever they go. Third, few others love to donate large sums of money to the church and even volunteering to construct the church building for free. Brothers and sisters, these are not wrong concepts, but neither are they considered adequate expressions of how we should love God in return. Tingali, mangutana mo, kalinsaon man dahil kuya. Please read this. All of us, please read.
All of us are all wrong life. This all wrecks human behavior and plans for life. Some give anything and everything just to achieve the goal. We give our lives in pursuit of our goals, and if our goal is not focused on loving God, then we fall short of the ideal.
Yes, I would like to read the last sentence again. We can give our lives in pursuit of goals. But if our goal is not focused on loving God, then it falls short of an ideal. When I was a young boy, my parents encouraged me to love God and serve Him by becoming a priest. So this became my goal in life. So I served in the church as an altar boy, then entered high school and completed college seminary. But unsa man pagkamsa nga nawala makaspasing. I lost focus on my goal. Kay nagminim ako. Patay. So, as a married man, my life revolved around 3 things. First, church to hear Mass only on Sundays. home, and office. This became my life during these years. I felt there is something lacking in me, something of a vacuum. I realized that loving God within these three boundaries, church, home, and office, bears no meaning if my love for God is not expressed in actions in loving my neighbors. By God's grace, I serve in the church as a Eucharistic lay minister and then joined BCBP, where I served in various capacities until I became chapter head of Mandawi. After my term, it was very tempting to decline invitations again to serve the community. Kaya lagi, naabot naman ako ang summit of my service to the community. But moved with a servant's heart and a mentality of service, I continue my service in the Talamban mission, which is now Talamban chapter. I hope and pray that with all these various service ministries, I would be on the right track and remain focused on my desire to love God and serve Him, not as a priest, but as a lay person, just like any one of you here. Loving God, therefore, is my highest priority. Jesus, during his public ministry, went to different towns and villages proclaiming the good news. And on one occasion, Jesus was asked by a scribe, saying, "Teacher, which is the greatest of all the commandments?" And Jesus answered, "Love God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength." What does that mean? To love God with all your heart. Heart here has two understandings: modern day understanding and biblical understanding. Under the modern day understanding, heart here is synonymous to feelings. But we cannot love God based on feelings, because feelings do change from time to time. Under the biblical understanding of a heart, this refers to the combination of the heart and the mind. And when these two function together as one, there will be a decision, a commitment, and when you are committed, you will do it. I remember when I was practically new sa BCBP, I was asked to give a talk like this. Kaya lagi, the invitation was given to me about 2 to 3 months ahead of schedule. So akong gidawat. But when I started preparing my talk, I realized na I was inadequate. Di na ko kaya. My heart is willing to give the talk, but my mind says no. My heart ultimately succumbed to the dictates of my mind, to the point nga I approached our course leader and requested him to replace me. After ilang mga hangyo, no? Prodding and sige lang yung hangyo nga musugot. Finally, I accepted. And my heart and my mind agreed and said, let's do it. To love God with all your mind. The use of the mind could have a disastrous effect if not properly guided. So we need to keep our mind clean and holy, that is, free of evil thoughts and desires. I read the Bible and other helpful Christian readings to fill my mind with the thoughts of God and serve Him in the BCBP by making my mind available for God's purposes, like this talk that I am giving to you now. To love God with all your strength. Strength here means money, time, and energy. Money. It is not that God is interested in your money, how much deposit you have made to the bank, but rather it's the how you developed the right attitude towards money. We are in possessions of money, not as real owners, but as stewards. And as such, we have the responsibility to manage well these resources. Time. Just like money, we do not own our time. We only have to manage it. I remember when I was still working in the bank here in Cebu as the head of the loans processing department. Some of my colleagues invited me to join them on like Friday night out. Kaya lagi mag-conflict man sa una, nausap na parang schedule, no? Mag-conflict man sa una kung sa Friday, kaya natay teachings, natay assemblies, maingon na lang ko sa iya nga, bay, na naman ko yung activity karon. So, say yes if you mean yes, and no if you mean no. And your friends will just accept your excuse. Energy. Giving you this talk is an expression of my love for God. Together with the rest of the service team, we are here to serve your needs as our way of serving the Lord. Kung ikapuna mo dihat paglingkod at paminaw, most likely ang inyo sang mga kuya sa natin in the service team, ikapoy po sila. But they are here with you out of their love for God. Now, our model in loving God. We are fortunate that we have a model in loving God. And He is no other than Jesus Christ. How did Jesus Christ model Himself? For easy recall, please remember the three letters O-D-L. Oh, remember the night when Jesus gave the Panamilit with His apostles? He had His Last Supper, the washing of the feet. Then they went to the Garden of Gethsemane. And there, Jesus told His apostles, "Hulak mo daliha kadiyot kay muadto ko sa unahan." And there, Jesus prayed to His Father, saying, "Father, if you are willing, remove this cup from me. Cup here refers to the suffering that Jesus will undergo in a little while, like the carrying of the cross, the crowning of thorns, the crucifixion and death on the cross. Jesus knew it. He could have asked Peter to replace him, but no. Instead, Jesus continued saying to his Father, "Not my will, but your will be done." A good example of this is when we follow God's Ten Commandments. D. Joseph, Mary, and Jesus went to Jerusalem to attend the feast of Passover celebration, and afterwards they went back to their place. After a long walk, Mary realized that Jesus was not with them. So they went back to Jerusalem, and there they found Jesus in one of the synagogues talking to the Jews. And Mary approached Jesus and asked the question, "Son, why have you done this to us? Don't you know that your father and I have been terribly worried for you?" And Jesus answered, "Why are you looking for me? Don't you know that I have to be in my Father's house?" At his young age, Jesus was already preparing himself for his mission. Diba? We know Jesus came on earth for a mission, and he was dedicated to accomplishing his mission. And for us here, a good example would be active in the BCBP activities. F. Focus on the Father's will. Jesus regularly communicates with his Father in prayer to remain focused on his Father's will. For us, a good example for this is our daily prayer at least 15 minutes. Brothers and sisters, loving God is not something that is vague. It involves specific practical actions and decisions and commitments. The services that your brothers and sisters are doing now are concrete and specific actions and decisions as their expression of their love for God. They could have been somewhere else, some mall, window shopping, having lunch with friends, family members, magsuri-suri lang yun sa mall. But no, they are here because they want to serve you. Thus, service is love expressed in action. The question now is, to whom shall we express our love for God? We now come to the second part of my talk, and that is loving our neighbor. Our love for God will be made possible and meaningful by loving our neighbors. Loving God and loving our neighbors are two different directions, yet inseparable. I cannot say that I love God, but I hate my neighbors. Conversely, I cannot say that I love my neighbor, but I hate God. Bitano, in my own human understanding, how could I love God, somebody who is beyond my senses? I cannot see Him. I cannot touch Him, even feel His presence. But thanks God, early in my married life, He made me realize that loving God, there is more to loving God than from these three boundaries. And that is to express our love for God through our neighbors. And rightly so, because Jesus said, the second highest, greatest commandment is to love your neighbor as yourself. Then a teacher of the law asked Jesus the question, and who is my neighbor? And Jesus answered by giving the parable of the Good Samaritan. The parable tells us that any person in need of your help, whether he is rich or poor, young or old, any member of your family who is in need, is your neighbor, extend some kind of help. And Jesus confirmed this when He said, whatever you do to the least of your brethren, you do it unto me. That is the essence of Christianity. Love one another. Christianity is a love relationship. A relationship that God the Father initiated when He sent His only Son, Jesus Christ, to the world to save us from our sin. By virtue of our baptism, we become members of one big Christian family, where we become sons and daughters of God and belong to one God, with Jesus Christ at the center of our lives. As sons and daughters, we share in the eternal life of God. That is why we believe that there is life after death. But what really is love in relation to our neighbors? Again, we are fortunate that we have Jesus as our model. Let us take a look on how Jesus modeled Himself. Service love. Jesus washing the feet of His apostles is an example of humility and servitude. Only servants wash the feet of the masters and not the other way around. We in the BCBP Mandawi chapter, Mandawi West and Talamban chapter regularly do this on Holy Thursday to remind our leaders that they are here to serve their members of the community. Self-sacrificial love. Jesus dying on the cross was greatest act of self-sacrificing love. We may not be required to do this. A visit to a sick friend in the hospital or in their house is already a good example. We sacrifice our money, our time, and our energy. A forgiving love. Jesus, while hanging on the cross, shouted to his Father, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." Siguro sa office na atay mga bullies, no? Ambot o nagka-experience sa buwan na i-bully mo, na usahay sakit kayo nga maka-silently kahilakta nga kita malay siging binuangan. Instead of fighting back, we might as well say, "Lord, forgive him, for he does not know what he is doing." Sa iyo, Trabaton? Unconditional love. Jesus, while hanging on the cross, a criminal on his left side shouted, "If you are Son of God, come down from the cross, save yourself and us." And the other criminal on the left side, on the right side, rebuked the other guy and said, "Ayaw pagbuhat, ayaw pagsulti anak, kay this man has not committed any crime." Then he said to Jesus, "Remember me when you are in your kingdom." And Jesus replied, "Today, without ifs and buts, without any conditions," Jesus said, "Today, you will be with me in paradise." That's unconditional love. Brothers and sisters, if you were to be tested, how would you fare out in your responsibilities in the following areas? By scale of 1 to 10, you rate yourself inwardly or personally. As a husband, as a wife, as parent to your children, in your work, profession, in your parish, community. Now, the challenge in loving God and neighbor. Jesus Christ in the Gospel of St. John was emphatic when he asked Peter the same question 3 times. "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" And for 3 times, Jesus instructed Peter and said, and in his instruction, he was very specific, saying, "Feed my lambs, look after my sheep." Brothers and sisters, Jesus has shown us by modeling himself how we should love God in return. Now, if Jesus were to ask each one of you, right here, right now, the same question, "Do you love me?" What is your response? Brothers and sisters, Kuyas and Ates, that ends my talk. Thank you for listening, and Merry Christmas to one and all.